Hi and welcome to PolyOriginals with Fiona Abel-Smith. So for today's session I thought we'd have some fun and make some beautiful hanging decorations. And these are really quite simple to make, strung on wire, and I'll take you through from how we create the cane all the way through to how we get this finished effect. And what I love about these is you can either have them hanging that way up, or you can string them in the other direction and have them hanging that way up. So whichever way you decide to do it, this is a nice, quick, simple technique, and the amount of clay I'm using gives you enough to make 4 of these, and I'll show you the different alternates you can do. So let's dive straight in. Let's go through the equipment. Not a huge amount you need for today, but I do give you some options as always, and then we'll go straight into making some beautiful hanging decorations. The equipment we need to make the cane, to make the decoration, is fairly straightforward. So I've got a polymer clay blade. I sometimes refer to this as a tissue blade or just a blade. A small polymer clay roller, this is about 1/2 inch or 1.25 centimetres in diameter. A craft knife. A small cable needle or something similar, this one's 4mm, and I just use the flat edge of it to join the seams together where we put our pieces of clay together, so something similar will do. And then you need something to make a hole in the piece that we're going to put the wire through, and this needs to be bigger than the gauge of wire you're using. So I've got here a nice strong sturdy 2mm needle which has got a flat end. If you didn't have that, then something like a cocktail stick would work equally well, and I'd probably cut off the end just to flatten it and perhaps even sand the end, because again having a nice flat end gives us a nice hole when we're putting a hole through on the moulds, and that will become clear when we get to that stage. I do use a measuring sheet just to measure the size of the slices of cane we're cutting. You don't need this, but if you did want to get one of these, this is freely available from www.printablepaper.net, and I download the 4 squares to 1 inch one and I simply laminate it so I can use it several times, but something just to give you a rough measurement, so a ruler, absolutely fine for what we're doing today. What we will need is a set of moulds, and these are the ones I use. These are actually measuring spoons. They come from Asda. I believe that Walmart would also sell them, and they come in 4 sizes, and they are just lovely big domes, so they're useful for so many things, and I use all 4 of those. So that's one thing you can use, and one set, and they're the ones I'll be using in the tutorial. If you have one of these hollow bead makers from Sculpey, they work very well as well. So you can see there we've got the domes, so I'd use 1, 2, 3, 4, so the 4 sizes for those. If you don't have any of those, then something like a soup spoon can work, and you can use the same size soup spoon if you've got 4 of them and just make smaller pieces as you go down. Or you could use the top of an small old-fashioned spent light bulb, and all I'll do with that is I will actually put a whole load of clay on the bottom, scrap clay, so it can stand upright when it bakes in the oven. And if you've got none of those, then you can cut off the bottom of old drinks cans, and then you've got the nice curved bit here, which again you could use and just make small. So use the same size of this, but as you reduce the size of our cane down, just obviously do smaller ones. So again you'd need 4, and as you can see where I've chopped these off, I've used masking tape just to cover over any cut edges, just to make sure I don't cut myself, because as always with anything you're doing, safety first. To create that nice edging to our piece, I use silver or gold leaf. It's the faux one, and they generally come in sheets like this. You can buy them from most craft shops, and they're not that expensive. They're a little fiddly to use, so there are alternates, but this is what I'm going to be using in the tutorial today. If you don't want to do that, then you could add glitter instead. So when we've finished baking our pieces on the mould forms and pop them off, so before we put them together as decoration, a little bit of glue all the way around the edges, dip them in the glitter or shake some glitter over the glue, and then you get nice glittered edges, so that's another alternate. You could also use silver or gold acrylic paint and just paint that around the edges, and that would work. And then last but not least, you can get all sorts of pens, gold and silver pens. This is one that I've used recently, and this works really well. So I've just, again, once the piece is finished baking, just with the pen, gone around all of the edges, and that's another way to get your gold or silver edges. Other equipment to use, I always bake on a small tile, and I always tent my tile in aluminium foil. And I'll get a piece that's wide enough to go underneath, pull over the top, and then crinkle down the edges to create a nice tented effect, so it's not touching the clay, but it keeps the clay protected should your oven spike during the baking process. To complete the decoration, I use a thin piece of wire. This is 0.6mm or 22 gauge wire, and I've got about 9 inches or 22.5 centimetres, and need one of these for each decoration. This is slightly more than we need, but it's useful to have more rather than less as we work with it. I use metal spacer beads and glass beads to add a little bit of decorative interest, and I need at least one of these smaller beads to be wide enough, the hole in it, to take 2 widths of the wire. So for me, it's size 6 beads works well. And then you'll need some pliers to work with. So I've got the wire cutters, the flat nose pliers and the round nose pliers. And that's all we need to put the finished decoration together. Plus a little bit of ribbon of your choice, and I'm going to use the silver ribbon, just a thin piece, just to go through the hole when we've finished. Other things I do use a pasta machine dedicated to polymer clay use, and if you don't have a pasta machine, you can stack layers of playing cards either side of your clay and simply roll over the clay with a roller till you get it to the required thickness you want. And I'll put the details in the video description, so below the actual video, of the equivalent playing cards per thickness of the clay that I'm using as I go through the tutorial. Other than that, I use biodegradable wet wipes to clean my hands as I go, or a wet cloth would do, and then generally just some tissues just to clean over any surface, just to keep everything clean as I go. So that's it. Let's move on to the clay we need for today's session. For today's session, I'm using FIMO Soft polymer clay, but all well-known and recognised brands of polymer clay will work equally well for this. I've got enough here to actually make 4 decorations, so if you don't want to do as many as that, then you can just use less clay, but I wanted to show you the ones edged with silver and the ones edged in gold, and do them both ways round, which will make sense when we go further on. So for the amounts, I've got ½ an ounce or 14 grams, and I've got the plum, lilac, white and aqua, and I'm going to do a blend of these 4 colours, and the colours that I'm going to have on the end of either end of the blend, I've got a little extra bit of clay there, and the amounts I've got on the end here are about 3.5 grams, so about 1/8 of an ounce each of those. So the first thing I'm going to do is condition all of these in their separate colours, and I'll do that using my pasta machine. If you're unsure about conditioning clay, how or why we do it, I'll put a link to a video I have giving you details on how and why we do that, and that'll be in the video description below the actual video. I'm going to get them all conditioned, say in the separate colours, make sort of rough, sort of oblong shaped blocks, and I'm going to condition it on setting 3 of my pasta machine. And on my pasta machine, 0 is thick and 9 is thin. I'll get that done, and we'll bring you back, and then we can start having fun and making our decorations. The clay is all conditioned, and I've put them together in the order in which I'm going to do the blend. So from the purple to the lilac, the white and the aqua. And I've put them into, as you can see, just very roughly rectangular or oblong shapes. Don't need any more than that. And the 2 extra little bits of clay I've just rolled into sausages, and we'll put those to one side to use later on. I'm going to create a skinner blend with these 4 colours going from one through to the other. If you're new to skinner blends, then I do have a tutorial showing you how to do that, and I'll put the details in the information below the video for you. All I'm going to do is chop down diagonally through the 2 end pieces and straight down the 2 middle ones, and then I just put them together, 2 halves on each one, and then they fit together with that nice diagonal going through, and that's what gives us the blend. Give them a little roll to make sure that all the pieces are nicely adhered. Now fold them in half and put that fold through the pasta machine. Because I've got 4 layers here, I will put it through one thicker setting, so setting number 2 on my pasta machine. And each time it comes through, I will collect and fold, put it back through, collect and fold till we have a nice blend going from one side through to the other, and I'll bring you back when I've got that done. Once the blend's complete, you can either cut or fold it. I'm just going to fold it into 3, And I'm going to pinch the dark end and put the dark end first through the pasta machine with the folds at the side so that any air trapped in the folds will get pushed up through the pasta machine. So that end first, again on the same setting, so setting number 2 on my pasta machine. So now I've got a nice long sheet, but I want to get it as long and thin as I can. So on my pasta machine, I will simply go through the thinnest setting, which is setting number 9. Again, putting it through dark end first, so I get a really long, thin sheet. If you know that your pasta machine tears or chews your sheet of clay, then simply go down one setting at a time until you get to your thinnest usable setting on your pasta machine. Having got our long, thin sheet, I'm simply going to concertina it from one end to the other. Thickness wise, I'm probably about 1 inch, 2.5 centimetres wide, nothing more than that, because we want to end up with a nice thick block of clay. So there we have our block. It's not particularly neat at the moment, so what I'm going to do is flatten it along the sides, push it down to flatten both the ends, and I want a piece that's about getting on for 3 inches or 7.5 centimetres long, enough to be able to cut 2 even pieces and have them as being workable. So something a bit like that. And then we're just going to chop this into 2 even pieces. I'm going to put one blue side up, one purple side up. And with my cable needle, I'm going to press down almost to the bottom, right down the middle of the block. Remove the needle and then get the piece of coloured clay that's the same colour as the end you push down in, so this one purple, and I'm going to take a much thinner sausage, so roll out one end, because we need a bit of extra clay for something else in a minute or two. Just roll out one end. I'm just going to put a little block of the colour in, cut off the excess, and then push that back together. I'm going to push it back to make it an oblong again, but you can go slightly thinner and slightly longer if you wish, but just roughly an oblong. And then we're going to repeat exactly the same, this time going down from the light. So again, pressing all the way down through, adding a little extra roll in the middle, and then pushing it back into an oblong. So there we have our 2 pieces, one with a little blue and one with a little purple added. And now we need to change these into a triangular shape, which is going to go sort of like that, and we do it one piece at a time. So the first thing you want to decide is which of these 2 pieces is going to go towards the centre. So I'm going to do the piece with the lighter bit towards the centre. So I'm going to turn it on its side so you can see one colour through to the other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press down on these 2 sides and pull up the middle to make more of a triangular shape. It's quite useful to keep your finger pressed on an end when you're doing this so that it doesn't spread too much. And that's all I'm looking for, more I'd say a triangular shape. When we've got that, and we've got the blue to one side and the purple to another, I'm going to take this piece, and this piece needs to fit across the top, so I need to spread this way. So what I'm going to do is press in with my fingers and make it narrower, top and bottom. Hold it flat on the side, on its ends, so it's not going to spread too much along the height of it, because what we want to do is spread it out this way. It doesn't need to be huge, it does need to be the same width, so you can spread it out that way as well. And you're just looking for a nice thin piece. And then putting it together so the white piece or the lilac piece is matching both sides. Put it flat on the tile and then just gently press this one down over the top. You don't need it to reach the whole way down, but as you press, so it will start to match and go fold over the top of the piece underneath. So I'm just pressing down either side, and again we can press more of a triangle like that, and then I'm just going to pull these pieces down and pull this purple down that way, and then just really force it into a triangular shape. Again, keeping your fingers on either side, make sure it doesn't spread out too much and you don't get too much distortion on the end, and just work it until it's moving nicely for you and you've got a nice sort of equilateral triangle where it's the same length across each side. At which point you can start pulling it slightly longer, and by that I'm pressing in so it goes slightly longer along the length. And we want to do this till it's about 4 inches or 10 centimetres in length. When you've got it roughly the right length, going to chop down through the middle. And then you'll start to put your piece together. So you can put it together so that the lighter bit's on the inside. So I could put it together that way. Of course I could put it together that way. Your choice. That way to me doesn't work so well, because I prefer it where you've got one colour on one side and one colour on another, but I'm actually going to do it like this, so I have got that. So I've got the purple down towards one end and the light blue towards the other end, because that way, when I put it together like this, and we're going to change the shape and push these sides in, I will end up with a diamond piece, which is all blue on one side, all purple on the other, and that gives me the two options to give a different look in each of the pieces that I end up doing. So, having got this diamond going this way, I actually want to make it longer this way, so we do that by pushing in across the two sides. So effectively, we're going to square it off, turn upside down, push in that way as well. So you can see I'm just pushing on the very edges. And that way, we've now got more of a square shape. And once we've got that, we can start to reduce it along the square by simply pressing along the sides, rotate, press and rotate. And you'll end up with a lovely square cane. And we're going to do this till it gets to about, about 4 to 5 inches, so 10 to 12.5 centimetres. I think we'll go for the 5 inches, so 12.5 centimetres. So what I'm looking for is a piece that's about 3/4 of an inch, so just around just about 2 centimetres across this diameter, because that will give us a good starting point. And as you can see, with the amount of clay that I had, it did basically go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, did go to about 5 inches, 12.5 centimetres. So having got it to that size across each of my widths, I'm then going to look at it and press in along the sides. So I've still got the purple to one side, blue to the other, and I'm just going to round off all down along the sides, because what I'm looking for is a piece that when I cut the shape will be just under 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres going in that direction. So when we press along the sides, it makes it automatically longer, so this will probably be a little bit too big, so have a look, and yes, it's a bit too big at the moment. So to change this side, I'm going to take my thumb and my finger and I'm pressing them towards each other in the canes. I'm not pulling out, I'm pressing them towards. So if you've never done this before, you can practice by putting your fingers like that and literally doing that, because once you've done that, then you get the top edge and you simply press in, move down a bit, press in, move down, press in, and do that along the whole length of the cane. If you get to halfway and it's starting to get too long, turn it up the other way and do it from the other side. Now this does make it messy and you will get your fingerprints all over it. That is absolutely fine. It's also now gone a bit wider, so we're going to do exactly the same as we did before and press in along the length to round off the sides. So it then becomes neater, all those bits where we've pressed in. Then we'll have a look at the width. So that's not far off what we need. So it's sort of just under the 1 inch. So having done that, I'm just going to chop the end off so we can see what we've got, and that's the sort of thing we're looking for. You can even it up a little bit, but of course we are going to get distorted when we take our slices through. That's fine, and you will nearly always find that your very end piece is slightly longer than the bit next to it, so if you can just push that in slightly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark off the amount that I need for my pieces. Now I know from experience that I've got enough in this to make 4 of these decorations. Each decoration for each size we do has got 6 of these petal shapes to go onto it. So I know I'm going to do 2 of them with silver around the outside and 2 with gold around the outside. And in order to get the metal leaf, which is what we're doing at this stage, and as I mentioned when we're going through the equipment, if you don't want to do the metal leaf, then you don't need to do the metal leaf. You can always do the glitter or the pen afterwards, so that's an option for you. But if you are doing the metal leaf, we don't want to add it at this stage and then reduce the cane down, because as we reduce the cane, so that metal leaf will split and come and tear apart, and you get more of the outside colour of the cane showing through. And what we want really is to have all silver or all gold all the way around the outside. So to do that, we're going to chop off the amount we need, put it to one side, and then cover it when we're ready to use it. We then reduce the cane down to the next size, cut off the amount we need, and then we'll cover it with the foil later, and we will do that all the way down the 4 sizes that we need. When you're covering with the faux leaf, it gets very messy, and you'll find that it tends to go over the end piece of the pieces you've cut off. So because of that, I will cut 1 extra strip's worth at this stage and mark 1 extra piece worth, so I've got enough excess to cut off either end and leave me enough to do the rest. And because I'm doing 2 in silver and 2 in gold, I effectively need 12 slices of silver and 12 slices with gold around. So what I do is with my blade, I simply mark 13 slices. I don't cut, just mark 13 slices cut through. And that gets that to one side, and that gives me enough to put the leaf round and enough to cut off the excess. So in the end I had to do that off camera, because when I tried to do it on camera, the camera is so much in my way I couldn't do it neatly. But you can see there I have just, with my blade, marked out effectively 13 slices, and it's useful marking them as well, because when we put the gold or silver leaf around the outside, you can still see these grooves. So they give you a nice template that you can use to cut your slices down. So having done that, I will take that off. So that is my first set to do 2 lots of silver, which I will put off to one side. And I will then repeat to do the same with the gold. And what I'm looking for is to not take more than about half of the amount that I've got here. So there's the second set, which I've just cut off. And as you can see, they're probably about 2 to 3 millimetre wide, these pieces that I've cut. So a decent size, but not too thin, but not too thick either. So having got our first lot cut off, we now need to reduce this, so it's doing exactly the same again. Pressing in like that, smoothing down the sides, and this time we're going for a piece that's about just over ½ an inch, so probably just under 2 centimetres wide. And when you look at the big one you've got, there should be sort of an appreciable difference as you go down. Once you've got it to the right size, and that is about the right size, then again take off your 13 slices for silver, 13 slices for gold, if that's what you want to do, and put them to one side. So there are my 2 slices, so the next size is down. And now we need to reduce this down again. So this time I'm going to be going to a sort of around, or literally just over the ½ an inch, so about 1.25 centimetres. But again, when you start looking, it needs to be smaller than what you've just done. Okay, and again, same thing, mark off 13 slices cut, 13 slices cut. So we've got our 3 differing sizes for each of the ones we're going to do. And for the last piece, this again needs to be reduced down, and this one goes to whatever size you have left of clay to a certain extent. It needs to be smaller than our last piece, but it doesn't have to be tiny unless you're running out of clay, in which case you can make it really tiny. And I've done these with slightly smaller pieces all the way down to really tiny pieces, so just whatever you've got left. And this time we need to take enough for our 12 pieces for each of the colours we're going to do, the silver and the gold, but we're also going to take an extra 3 pieces for each of the decorations we're doing to do the very little bottom piece. So again, have a look at the size you want. So here we go, just to show you, these are the 4 different sizes. So you can see there's a definite difference between the 4. So for this last one, rather than cutting or marking 13 slices, I'm going to mark 19 slices and cut 19 slices and cut. So you need to make sure you've got enough to do that, and that's why I said reduce it to however much clay you've got left. And there we have all our pieces ready to be coloured in the silver or gold leaf, all with the slices marked out, with little bits of excess clay ready to go as well. So enough to do 12 slices for 2 decorations for all of those, with an extra 6 on the small piece as well. And obviously if you're not doing that many, and if you used less clay to start with, then you simply need 6 of each and 9 in the small one for each of the individual decorations. So the next thing to do is to cover these in the gold or silver leaf. Working with gold or silver leaf is always tricky, as anyone knows if they've had a go, so I try and keep the extra backing sheets to hand. And because the clay luckily is relatively sticky, all we have to do is to lay the clay on. And then I'll wrap over the edges and then fold it over to try and get it all over the outside of the little cane. And then the small piece, let's put him down there. And then using the sheet to hold it in place, I sort of tear off. And then it's a case of patching. So where you've got pieces not quite on, just tear them off and rub them in. If you've got excess going over the end, you can put it on. And take a bit of time, because we want this to be completely covered in the silver. As I mentioned, you can rub it over the ends because we're going to chop those off. So you can tear a bit of excess off if you need a bit more, just to go on the little bits that are missing. And what you're looking for is something that's completely covered in the leaf. Okay, and as I mentioned there, you can still see the lines we sort of did, all the grooves I did to cut our slices off. So repeat that for all 4 pieces. Once your piece is all wrapped, just take off a very thin sliver just from the end. Do it towards me so I can see what I'm doing. And then you'll have a nice neat end. And from this point on, you can use your grooves to cut your slices. So you want 12 slices. When you cut them, you'll find that the silver leaf sort of quite often sort of pings away, and of course you'll change, the shape will have come slightly distorted. So my fingers, I just reshape them and press down the edges to make sure the foil is nicely pressed into the sides, and I'm looking for like a sort of diamond shape. And then I'll put them to one side. And if you've got the diamond shape, then they're going to fit nicely together on our round moulds that we're using. Once you've done the first one, just repeat for the next sizes down, remembering that for this one you want 9 slices for each of your decorations, not just the 6. So I'll get all those cut and bring you back when we've done that. And there we have all of our slices for one decoration and another decoration all ready to go. So now we can get started. I've rolled the excess of the purple clay out into a thinnish sausage, probably about 4 millimetres, probably about 1/4 inch in width, and then I'm going to take off 3 largest pieces that when I roll them up are about that size, so a small round, probably about the size of a 6 millimetre bead, something like that. Then I'm going to take 2 smaller pieces, so just slightly smaller, not a lot. It doesn't matter if they don't come out smaller, particularly, just something sort of graduated in size. 2 smaller again. Again, each time rolling them up. And then 2 smaller again, so quite small pieces, these ones. And these are for the different sizes of the moulds as we go down, and will make sense in just a moment. There we go. So as I've been mentioning, I'm making 4 decorations out of the amount of clay that I used, and to show you the different designs, I'm going to do, say, some with silver, some with gold, and sometimes for one of them I will have the light blue towards the centre, and for some of them I will have the purple towards the centre. So effectively that's going to give me the 4 different, with the gold and the silver as well. You don't have to do that. You can decide which way you want to do yours if you're making 4, and do them all exactly the same. Completely up to you. But if you want to do them to have the different patterns, this is the way to do it. So I've decided with the first one I'm going to do, I'm going to have the light blue towards the middle, which is why I've gone for the dark purple. When I reverse it and have the purple towards the centre, I'm going to use the light blue, because each time it's going to be a contrast with that centre point. So we're working on the biggest spoon, so I'm going to take one of the larger blobs, just press it down flat in the middle of the spoon. And obviously the same with whatever mould you're using. If you get it central, fantastic. If not, don't worry about it too much. But what we're going to do is we're just going to pop our piece, because again you see it's touching but not right at the centre, and just fold it over, but don't press it down too hard, because we're going to have time to manoeuvre these if we need to. Take the next one and go diagonally opposite, and then 2 on this side, 2 on this side. And this is the point at which you can adjust them slightly to make sure that each one is going directly opposite. So you can manoeuvre and just press them down. And when you're happy that they're all placed equally around the side, then we can start to neaten them up and press them so that all the leaves are going to join together. And to do this, I'm using my cable needle. I'm using the side of my cable needle to use whatever tool is appropriate for you. And where this point is, I'm going to roll it this way to persuade that clay to go that way. Do that around all 6 pieces, and then do the reverse going in that direction, so that these joins are going to become nice and neat, and we fill up any gaps in between the 2. And even if you've got a big gap, you could have a gap about that big, but you could still join them up by doing this method. And because we've got silver leaf down the middle of that, there's not going to be a very strong join, so we really need to push it together to make sure that the clay is joining both on the top and the bottom, so that these areas join up neatly, whilst we still leave these areas loose. So literally press and roll upwards, going around your form. When you've done all 6, then go around in the reverse. And then I will go up each of the seams individually, pulling the clay up towards the middle, and then in and over the top till it all joins nicely together, because you then know that each of those sections is going to be nicely added in. If you need to, just roll over it all to make sure it's nice and neat. And take a bit of time making sure that everything's placed nicely. You can reposition things if you need to at this stage. You can then take your second large piece and just place it on the top, and that neatens off any of the joins and also gives a little extra decoration in the finished piece. And then we need to make a hole down through. So I've got this 2mm quite thick needle, or a cocktail stick would work. I actually like to use the blunt end, because then I know it's gone right down against the top of my form and will create a nice hole all the way through. So I'm just pressing down, giving it a wiggle till that I know it has opened up a nice hole, and that's going to be what we thread the wire through when the piece has finished baking. So that's ready to bake. Put it on one side. And then I'm going to repeat doing exactly the same down the next 3 sizes, each time using the decreasing size of clay in the middle. So I'll bring you back when I've got those done. Our 4 pieces are finished, then we've got our last 3 little petal shapes and the larger blob of clay. Facing down the bit that's going outermost, so my purple's going outermost, all I'm going to do is my thumb and finger, I'm going to press that flat, and just because it's FIMO I can just do that and that'll take out any of the fingerprints. Do the same for all 3 pieces. Take your needle, same tool you've used with the same hole, so either a needle or a cocktail stick. Go through the ball, and then the same pressure, sort of position we bring in our fingers all the time. Just your thumb and first finger press into a little sort of bicone shape, and then these pieces just sit on the bottom of that bicone. There's one. The next one should sit so that the petals sort of meet halfway round, which should just about give you room to put the last one in. So your 3 pieces. And then if you press down where they join the clay, they should automatically start to open out. So I'm just pressing on the clay at the bottom here. And then you can give a little roll just on the bottom of the clay in between your fingers so that it spreads this out. And then with your craft knife, I'm just going to twist the needle, holding the knife in place so that cuts off the end. And then you can shape these how you want. So I usually take the end of my cable needle and just curl them slightly in. And then you can just gently hold with your fingers, twist the needle, and that should pop off. And there's our first piece ready to be baked. When I bake, I will put a piece of aluminium foil underneath this and pull it over the top and pinch it so that it's completely sealed and away from the clay, so effectively tenting the whole tile in aluminium foil, and then bake according to the manufacturer's instructions for the brand of clay you are using. My pieces are now cooled, so to take them off I just gently put my thumbnail under each piece going around until it pops up, so nothing too bad, and do the same with the others. And to bead them, I'm going to take my piece of wire and I'm going to thread on one of my small accent beads. And then to secure it on, I need to bend the wire so it's going to go back up through the piece, so this will hold it in place. So I want to bend it around our bottom bead. So I'm going to take the wire in both directions over the bead, and then with my pliers flatten them back up so they're both facing upwards. So it creates a nice little area for the bead to sit in. I'm going to take one of the large spacer beads because the holes in these are big enough to fit 2 thicknesses of the wire through, so it goes back up through both those beads. Now this bead isn't big enough to take 2 thicknesses of wire, but these size 6s are, so I'm going to use a little size 6 because I want to put something up inside the small piece, a little decorative piece on the end, so that this is now going to sit neatly up inside. And that should again go through both pieces of the wire. And fit down nicely, and if you need to you can add an extra little couple of beads in there, so that should fit down so it just comes proud at the bottom and you can see the little accent bead. I'm now going to chop off the wire at the bottom, I'm going to chop off just that extra piece of wire. Do hold on to it so it doesn't ping across your work surface, but now I've just got the one piece, but that second piece going up is going to hold all those pieces in place. And now I can decide which way I'm going to do it, so I'm going to do the accent bead followed by the spacer bead. And I'm just going to work my way slowly up through the sizes, each of them hanging downwards. When I got to the top, I added an accent bead, then the spacer bead, then another accent, but it's completely up to you, and obviously however whatever the size of the bead, you can make it longer or shorter, but I found from practice that these spacer beads, these are 8mm spacer beads, and the size 6 seed beads seem to give me a nice placing of the pieces going down. So all we need to do now is complete the little hanging loop on top. So to do that, I've got my round nosed pliers, and I'm going to place my round nosed pliers about 3/4 centimetre or less than half an inch away from the top bead. Curl the wire twice around your pliers, angle the first loop so that it actually becomes level and flat with the way the whole decoration is hanging, and then you can slowly and carefully twist this metal wire around all the way down till you get to your beads. When you're at the bottom, cut off the excess, and then with your flat nose pliers, just push the little cut-off bit nice and neatly into the rest of the wire so it doesn't catch anyone's fingers when they're holding the decoration. The decoration is now finished, apart from just adding a piece of ribbon on the top so you can hang it wherever you wish. And here were the pieces done in the reverse, so where they had the blue to the outside rather than the purple. So again, I'll put those together and show you how it looks when that's all finished. And there are the finished pieces. So that's one I took you all the way through. That's one with the alternate with the blue on the outside, and there's the same with the gold on the outside. And hopefully you'll agree, I think they just make very beautiful hanging decorations, whether for a festive tree or festive decoration or any time of the year, to be honest, just something very pretty. So I've mentioned before there are other things you can do to do the finishing techniques. So on these three, I didn't use the silver or gold leaf. So on these outer two, I actually used glitter. So this was added after the pieces were baked, but before they were put together, and all I did, run a little paintbrush with some glue down the edge and then just sprinkled the glitter on, and they do give you a lovely glittery effect, but it is quite messy, but that is a nice alternate. And if you didn't want to do either of those, then on this one I did simply use the acrylic pen to go around the edges after it was baked, and again that gives you quite a nice effect of the contrast on that one. So they're alternates if you didn't want to use the gold or silver leaf. And here are some other colour options for you. As you can see, some of them are slightly longer than others, and that purely depends on the size of the beads you use on the inside. This is a red version, and for this one I used ruby red, Indian red, tangerine and white. This one is the tangerine into the sunflower, into the white, and then the mango. This one was chocolate brown into the mango, into the white, into the peach. This one was the tropical green into lime green, into mint and white. But this one I'd actually added a little bit of black as the added extra bit when we did the insert. This one is emerald green, tropical green, mint and white, and this one is brilliant blue, aqua, just into white. So just the three colours. This is when I was experimenting, and this one is very similar to what we've done today. So plum into lilac into white, and then instead of the aqua I've used the mint. So lots of different colour options you can do, and as I mentioned earlier, you can also have them hanging the other way. So this time they hang from the top down, so look like almost like little trees in their own right. And this is the same colourway, just light on the outside or dark on the outside, and the same with these two. And for this one it was brilliant blue, peppermint, white and aqua. And for this one we had plum, raspberry, lilac into white. So lots of different options depending on what you want to do, how you want to orientate them. And I must admit, depending on which way you do them, either that way up or that way up, if you did little mini versions, they'd also look nice as a pair of earrings. So many options, just a nice, quick and simple design. So that's it. That's the end of today's tutorial. A nice, relatively easy one that you can use any cane for, but obviously I just showed you that new little cane as a design to use for these decorations. I had great fun doing them. I hope you do too. As always, thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to those of you who subscribe. I really do appreciate it. I think I might be making a few more of these. Watch my social media space because I'll show you other designs and other things you can do with the petals. So keep watching this space, and remember, as I say, do subscribe for notifications when I post. That's it for now. Hopefully I'll see you next time for some more Polymer Clay fun. Bye!